We're back again, oh. Wow.
Welcome back, everyone, to Home and Abroad podcast, where we talk real life, real issues, real experiences, and today we have a
Not,
topic that,
not, not just real experiences of like certain demography. Let's put it like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's very important we put it that way because experiences actually varies from one individual to another. So of a certain demography called like the immigrants, Nigerians to be precise. So yeah,
yep.
basically.
And today we're diving into a topic that's often, overlooked, but it's deeply needed. And we hear certain things like men don't cry, or man up, or never show signs of weaknesses. So those are the things we'll be unpacking today. And from everything from emotional vulnerability, bromance, masculinity, friendships, and relationships. And we
Wait till it's
have we have our own brother, friend,
Mm.
a senior consultant,
Mm.
man of rich wisdom,
Continue.
continue.
and a
Give it to us.
plethora of experience to share with us. Please, ladies,
Also,
sorry, there's no ladies here. Gentlemen, can you please welcome Roy Okonkwo? Good to have you,
I'm
brother. Good to
the
have
most
you.
excited person to have Roy here.
I
yeah,
second
yeah,
the excitement.
yeah. Hi, hi
Yeah, good to have
everyone.
you here. Really, really,
Is there
really,
something
really
you
good.
want to tell our viewers first before we dive into this topic?
First of all, I think it's wonderful to be here. I've been watching the show for some time now, and I think it's been really impactful. So it's a privilege to have these great men of timber and caliber.
Oh, so Simi Flower. Give us, give
What
us,
what
give
was
us.
the thing you said
of
earlier?
of of great
Wait,
opinion. Thought leaders, thought leaders, and the next best podcast ever. So I'm
Next day
privileged.
podcast.
Best,
this
best,
is
best.
something. This is something I'm going to reference when we
Why?
dive deeper into this question. When it comes to like banter amongst like male friends, it's always very
Yeah.
funny because
Uh,
I don't know. Maybe I need to tell everyone. Before we started the recording, and then Roy came into the record. He was trying to what's it called in his reach to greet us. There was this slang he made use of, and I was like, who thinks about all of these things? he said he's greeting all of us with reckless abandonment, and I'm like,
yes, we greet without regard.
oh
We
yeah.
greet. We
There's
greet
warm
without.
regards, there's kind regards, and there's
No, no, this is regard. This is without regard for the environment, circumstance. We salute our high chiefs
I
correctly and
salute you as
adequately.
I fondly call you my king. My
So
king, my king.
on that, I told you the K in your name stands for kingship. There's no K in my name.
There's K in your last name now.
That's the last name. That's the father's names. This
But
is
R
you.
R day your name, that's royalty.
Royalty is succumbing to kingship every day
Oh,
of this.
Jesus. We'll never see the end of this thing. I think we just have to like dive right into
Oh
this
my
topic.
goodness.
I mean, I remember
Yeah.
when we're thinking about this, because when we're thinking about this topic, we felt like, okay, there are just two people in the whole of like this community that can actually give us the kind of content we like and that our viewers would also appreciate and, like top on the list. And
Mm.
I mean this in all sincerity and honesty, right? And to have you say, "Oh yes, you're ready," like let's go. Ah, man, I was like, okay, cool. I love this kind of energy.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know the topic. Just like it says, I'll just pick just one word because Kesh said a lot of things, right? And the one word I'll pick out of this is what does like the word masculinity mean to you? What it has always meant to you before you came to the country, and now that you've come into the country, do you think there's been a form of like transition in what you believe masculinity is while you're in Nigeria and now that you're in the United States?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful question, and one thing I've come to learn in life is we have to learn. We have to learn to learn, and learn to unlearn and learn to relearn as well. I think everybody knows
Mm-hmm.
it's a popular statement. So to your question directly, I think masculinity from in the context of this conversation draws from a place of culture
Okay.
because I feel, for instance, I'm Igbo by tribe and by upbringing, and my father was a chief.
Okay.
So when you say a masculine Igbo man is different from a masculine somebody, a person from a different culture.
Yeah.
So if I would define masculinity for me is more like leadership, it's more like being the provider, as they always like to say. It's also more like being the burden bearer. It's also more like being the person that everyone comes to for support, for help, and you always being there to support them, regardless of how you feel or how or what you're going through. You just have to be that rock, providing all round support to your family, to your friends, that sense of dependability, you know. And, to further deepen what masculinity is also an understanding of that you cannot or you should not show a lot of weaknesses because weaknesses of vulnerability rather because that is a sign of a weakness from a general perspective. So that was my orientation back home. And coming here, like I mentioned earlier, you have to relearn some things, unlearn other things. So I've learned so much more. Like growing up, I I didn't go to the kitchen to cook because literally, yeah, it's funny, but
As an odogu that you are.
that usually if I wanted food, my dad would tell me to go and ask my sister to come and give you food. And I mean, I'll go my shoulders, so and so, please, she come and give me food. You know, and they'll say,
It's
okay, or
granted,
so,
right?
yes, or somebody, maybe a cousin in the house, or somebody, or they'll ask, are you hungry? Won't you come and eat? So it was like a wrong thing to actually go to the kitchen to take food. That's not your jurisdiction. That's not your territory. Don't go there. Don't be there for any reason.
Yeah.
So that was like the mentality growing up from when I was much, much, much younger. When I began to grow, I realized that cooking is a life skill.
It's a survival skill, bro.
You
Yes.
need it.
Yes. Just like the safe driving and all the likes, right? You don't need
Mhm.
anybody to feel that, you know. And also growing up, I've come to realize, especially coming to America, it's a different culture, it's a different society. You have to embrace the new. You have to understand what the culture says and how to relate with it, you know. So I've also learned that as a man, it's okay to be vulnerable. As a man, it's okay to have people close to you. As a man, it's okay to have people that you trust, that you can talk to. As a man, you can put your family, your mom, your sisters. You can help each other. So different orientations, different changes, different growths, and different mindsets come into play. So that was what I would say it would be like a summary of my definition of masculinity overall.
I mean, there was one thing you mentioned in there that is gonna like in a way is a segue to some other questions or some other things we've written down because we share the same thought as well. Because especially in Nigeria, right? And to have you come from the east, I think that's where everybody believes it's more pronounced to the. I mean, in terms of like the masculinity and how all of the things you mentioned around, like for instance, you're not the one that's supposed to cook. It's your
Mm,
sisters and maybe your mom and stuff like that, right? And you mentioned something that I took so what's it called? I took there about how you were expected in terms of definition of masculinity to be the burden bearer, to be that support, the rock generally. And I don't know about you, it's a lot to actually demand from one person. It's
Yeah.
not like it's demanded at times. Sometimes we just get that we feel the need to do those things. And I wonder at times, like, how did I actually register in our memory to just take it upon ourselves to do those things? Because trust me, nobody asked for it, but you just found yourself. At what point in time did you realize that, oh, yes, I feel like I need to do all of these things? I mean, and I won't be surprised if we still do them as well. So, at some point in time, when did you realize that? When did you itch that? Oh wow, this is what I'm doing. I feel like I'm doing something that is needed to be done. And also, another question I was going to ask as well is, do you ever feel like you're tired? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think those are like wonderful questions. So, so I'll answer it in two phases
Okay,
in the context from back home in Nigeria and into this
oh,
context
nice, nice.
that I'm here. So growing up, when you feel the need to do stuff, your my dad would always okay. For instance, I think a good example would be a good place to start. So when we are like trying to do like a celebration, for instance, where we are killing some animal, goat, cow, whatever it is, my dad will tell the ladies to go inside. This is not an event.
You just perjured yourself. You say when we're killing goats and animals, you don't know where you are.
And then yeah,
I
you
mean,
need
I, I mean, I have to be very careful.
when you send the goat on an errand.
Exactly. Yeah, when you are sending it to see it's generations,
Yeah,
exactly. So I will remember my dad always saying, "I know this is not something that a woman should do. So this is you're a man. You're a man. Don't you know you're a man? Come outside. Come and do this one. So from the get go, it was really clear on what who should do and what a man should do and what a woman shouldn't do, for instance.
Gender roles.
So exactly, gender role. So it was more all those kinds of things instigated that kind of responsibility mindset. So
yeah,
my dad always sometimes something will happen if I'm hurt or if I feel pain. The next thing that goes out of his mouth, don't you know you're a man? Don't you know you're a man? Or if you
Mm-hmm.
are in an emotional state, the next thing that goes, don't you know you're a man? So
Looking
all of
back
that,
now, how does that affect? Like, I don't know.
yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
all of that builds up to what the expectation of masculinity should
yeah,
be and what a man should look like from the perspective of my time and my experience with my dad and the male figures around me back home. You
yeah.
know, so at the same time, when we want to go and buy something, for instance, or my dad wants to give money to me or my sisters to go to school, he gives my sisters, let's say, twice more. And
Yeah.
if I complain, don't you know you're a man? You have to be able to manage. You have to be able to, be frugal. You have to be able to understand that you do not deserve the same, kind of treatment as a woman because she's soft, she's that kind of thing.
Yeah, she's to be
Mhm.
taken care of,
Exactly. So that
and you
also
have to take care of yourself.
exactly.
I honestly don't blame your dad because the one example you mentioned about killing animals, I'll be surprised if my girlfriend goes out to kill a goat.
Exactly. You see? Yeah, exactly.
So I
So
think it's just all about preserving their femininity, which is
exactly.
understandable as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
And
some things are unladylike. You see a girl try trying to
Yeah, I can
yeah.
what
only
happened to her
imagine.
teeth, eh?
Mhm. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's so all that, and when a few things happen, let's say you go out and my sister comes and do you know that this guy spoke to me anyhow? And the next time my dad said, was Roy there with you? And he was like, yes, the bro was just laughing. Wow. Then my dad calls me and it's like, don't you know you're a man? You're meant to protect. You're meant
Shoulder,
to
yeah.
In and process.
shoulder. So all of those examples and a lot more that I cannot just mention here are what really builds the mindset or the frame of mind and that burden on what a man should be, what he should do, and how he should do it.
I
So
mean, and that is chivalry in a way as well. We're being taught chivalry, but it was
right,
just in a different direction, in a different light. To be honest, I
right,
think
Yeah,
thanks for reminding us about these things because
yeah.
I
These
think
things are
this is the things we did like and we were told to
TV,
do.
like
we
Yeah,
thought
movie and all
yeah,
exactly,
those things
that's true.
we did
But
yeah.
before.
yeah, continue. Sorry for continuing,
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, of course, not a problem. So, and the twist there is it doesn't only teach you how to be a man, it also teaches you how to treat a woman or how a woman should be treated, you know?
Baba,
So,
you good. See the
so,
way
so,
see where it took us
Daily.
to.
no, no. I'm not saying this because it's what it is, right? That's
Yeah.
how, like, the whole experience comes together. But when you come over to this side of the world, it's a bit different because sometimes when you act a certain way, well, you can't just act a certain way sometimes because it feels like you are thinking less of a person or the person cannot do what the person needs to do. You are trying to be his person's savior, which somehow the person doesn't want. So for me, from my experience coming here, what I've learned is I'm more to sit back and observe,
Mm.
you know?
More laid back.
So yeah, I don't follow my natural instincts a lot of times because sometimes it gets you into trouble. So when you go to Rome, you have to learn how the Romans behave before you. I feel like you have to learn how. I'm not really of the opinion that you should always act like a Roman, but I feel like it's imperative to learn how the Romans
To
behave. So
blend, yeah.
yeah, so
Then
you can relate better. You can have your beliefs, have your modus operandi and all of that.
your
Hmm.
core values and all those things.
Yeah, but it's important to learn how people behave, what's right, what's wrong, so you can relate better, blend in, but still maintain your personality as an original person. So to answer your question directly, over here, I feel I'm more, I observe more and try to understand and learn how a person wants to be treated. What is masculinity in this context, in this environment, and how best can I have a wonderful blend of who I am while expressing the masculinity that is understood in
Yeah.
this in
I,
this in this environment.
I think there's one part that probably you probably haven't shed enough light on. I said about the you trying to like take up on all these responsibilities that in a way shapes you to be masculine and all that. And I think the question I asked afterwards, if you ever feel like it's too much burden for you, do you ever like tell yourself that, oh wow, I'm tired? Do you what was like your outlet, what's your outlet?
Yeah, honestly, there's sometimes that you feel very, 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 very tired. You know, from the perspective of like an immigrant coming to the United States, first of all, there's enough pressure
Mhm.
to understand that you are feel like you're walking on eggshells. You don't want to. You're crossing all your teeth, dotting all your eyes. No room for
Yeah,
error, no room for
Yeah.
mistake.
yeah.
Be on
And
your A game like almost every
always, if you thinking about it from the context of life in general, making a living, provision, getting a job, school, immigration status, all of that good stuff is like
family back home.
is a lot of burden. That's one. Number two,
Yeah.
you're thinking of family back home, like Kesh said. You cannot, as a man, you cannot expect them to be sending you money from home. So, so I mean that there is no help.
Hmm.
It's you
Your head
and
and your hands.
You
yes,
yourself.
and the way forward, right? And I feel like that's the major challenge that we immigrants face. You're coming to a new man's land and you don't know anybody, no sort of structure, no emotional supports.
Yeah.
It's just you, different time zones, and everything just hits you in different areas
All at
quickly,
small.
you know. So, but then you're a man, you cannot call and man, my sister, mommy, so mommy, all of that is you cannot, you
So
can,
all
Even
of
if you
this to
call, they
say
will still tell you the same thing.
yeah,
all of this to say you don't have like friends you talk to when you feel like, oh, you don't have mentors you can actually share to, or in this sense maybe you have a girlfriend, who knows, that you can actually share some of all these things too. That's what I was like, what I meant by saying what is your outlet.
right. So I have a girlfriend, and and I feel outlets are so see outlet, right, is a very, very
Say it
so
with your
so
chest.
so
I know
so
what
yeah,
you're about to
yeah.
say.
So many things. So for me, outlet means a lot of things, right? I don't have to. It doesn't necessarily mean talking to somebody. Sometimes, so for me, outlet can mean I need to go play tennis to get out of my head. I need to go play basketball to get out of my head.
Hmm.
When you talk about people and outlets and people to talk to, I feel that's important. But I feel it's a very dicey matter because you have to trust the person well enough to be able to open up to that person. And in the context of having a girlfriend, I have a God so kind. I have a girlfriend that I can talk to. I have a girlfriend I can share some level of burdens with. However, there is still that thing behind your head saying, man, you don't want to talk
Body
to,
not so much. I get you.
yeah, yeah, you
And
don't want
handle
to,
stuff on your own and take care of
yes, exactly. You don't want to burden the person too much. You want to be able to handle your stuff by yourself. It's good. And it's also bad too, because I mean, when you are there
Is it
able to
really bad?
talk, yeah, I think it's bad sometimes to
Bro,
tell the truth because
let's dissect that part. I think I have
yeah,
my
I'll
own
tell
school of
you.
wisdom, and
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
share.
go
Let me
ahead.
you get. I have
Go
my own
ahead.
school
Go
of
ahead.
wisdom.
Yeah,
So
go on.
up until the part where you said at times it gets too much, right? You really don't want to burden someone. For instance, it's I think for me most times I share the same thoughts, right? And it's from a place of like me being considerate, right? I do believe that everybody has their issues, right?
Right.
Including my, I mean, I don't have a girlfriend currently, but if I had a partner, I would assume that, okay, this is too much. I can't keep coming to the same person with the same thing every now and then. Number one, because I start spiraling in my head that, what, what is this, what is this person's perception of me in terms of being the man of the house in the future? Like, is she gonna see from the angle of like, oh, this guy can't seem to handle the problem, and then it makes the
Do stuff.
relationship shaky. So I'm already thinking two steps ahead. You understand? So most times when I don't share or I try to like
Put
how
back.
do I say hold back, it's because I'm being considerate, number one, of our own feelings of what she's going through as well. And also the fact that, I really don't want somebody to see me less of who I am as a man. And you get me? So to be honest, I mean, we've seen a lot of videos out there, a lot of podcasts out there that says, oh, um, I don't know how to put it, that we tend to like define we have a different definition of what being a man is, right? And so most times it is not like you should be able to. Part of it is being vulnerable, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's still that school of wisdom. I've still haven't like been able to grasp my head around. Like I still don't know how to create that balance without having to
Yeah.
think that, oh, I hope this won't be used against me in the future.
Of course. Of course.
It's a real
It's a valid,
struggle.
Very valid.
yeah, very
It's a real
valid.
struggle,
Very,
right?
very,
And
very valid.
most times it's probably the reason why a lot of maybe past relationship will tell you that, oh, he doesn't communicate. I mean, there's some things that are just left unsaid and you just let it go. Some things you just hold back and just don't share. It's just how I am wired. I mean, if I'll prefer to control that than control what might be the negative outcome if I'd start sharing. You understand? I don't know. That's what I believe. But yeah, you can go ahead and just like tell me what your
Yeah.
opinion is.
I would like to hear. I would like to hear what Kesh thinks about this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I have many thoughts. Yeah. So one is, but I'll quickly say, like you mentioned, when you were talking about you having a girlfriend and God so good, she's someone that you can share some things with. I think having that understanding, and then if you are lucky to have someone that you can share all of those kind of things with. But if that's not the case, I think you also have to understand the boundaries and trusting the person or whoever it is to know, okay, this person is someone I can share this kind of information with, and this person is, I mean, they probably will not handle it well, or they cannot process it well, or they cannot even help me, because part of sharing problems or situations you're going through is you looking for solutions, not necessarily from them. They could be like a pointer, but part of you sharing is, oh, I'm going through these things, and they can offer like word of comfort or point you in the right direction. So if you don't trust that person enough, I mean, you have to understand all of those things. Now, going back to, so you started off, talking about your traditional, like coming from home and how those kind of values and views have shifted. So now I'm trying to draw a contrast between, for the lack of better word, traditional masculinity and what we now call the modern masculinity, and how things have changed. Now you say, oh, a man has to be a provider, has to be a shield, has to protect, has to do all of these things. And now, what you hear, almost everywhere is, oh, men don't share their emotions. They bottle up their feelings. They don't talk as much. They don't communicate. They do all of these things. They are strong headed. They face their problems, not sharing, like, what Akin was saying. So, like, how do you? So, my own question is, and I believe, like, so some people too will have like that question, like, how do you navigate those, like, very thin boundaries between living or existing in your masculine self and also exhibiting this soft side of being a man or being a human. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, like,
Absolutely. Yeah, totally do.
because if you want to share your emotions, it sort of conflict you being a strong. And I mean, there's been a lot of talks around, oh, you can still be a man and be soft. Or for example, there are some certain things that women do, or when men do them. For example, you going for a mani or pedi. People will see it as that's not what real men do. Like,
No, or having
sounds
a
simple,
skincare routine.
or skincare routine, like things like that. So, like, how do you navigate such thin line between masculine and just being a soft man generally, just being a soft baby boy?
Right. Yeah. I think that's also a good question. But before I get to that, let me just quickly wrap up on what we were talking about before around why I think sometimes sharing can be bad, right? And I think you both highlighted major points, which is borders around trust, right? It's it's not. I think when I saw the theme, it was really interesting. 30s. So that's age bracket really got me thinking about a few things. And I'll give an instance, right? When you were growing up, when you were in secondary school, early days of university, I feel like those days were the days where you made like your best friends, your realest friends,
Mm,
because there is no forming there. There is no what do you do, how much
Just,
you earn, what you
just
drive.
real.
Yes, you can. The friendship is based on no particular interests, if you get what I mean. It's
mm,
just personal, who you are, and you get to know the person for who the person is as well. So those friendships most times are built on a good foundation of trust, which is the core, right? So you can go to those some of those people and just tell them the way it is, how you feel, and they won't judge you for it. They won't go behind your back and say, "Oh, this guy is a weak person," or "This guy is a strong
yeah.
person," "This guy is this," or the because he genuinely loves and cares about you. He genuinely understands that this person is going through stuff and he has or she has to be there for you. Is important, right? So why I think sometimes sharing in our 30s can be bad because the trust factor is not as good. We don't have enough time sometimes to make valuable, impactful relationships because there are a lot of things that are in between. I mean, you're a busy man, you're working. If you have a girlfriend, that's a different time, a different time allocation to that person. Normally, you'd speak to your guy for 2, 3, 4 hours a day or share things with him. You can't do that. The communication is a bedrock for relationships, right? So you cannot build those kinds of friendships as much as you would when you are much younger. So when you are under pressure and you feel some level of pain and all of that, and your next point is to have an outlet in a person that you talk to, how sure are you that person has your complete interest?
Yeah.
What is the guarantee that when you break apart tomorrow, the person wouldn't go somewhere and say that guy is just the he said this and he did this, and when he was going through that with that girl or with that person, this was what
Mhm.
he said, this was what he did. So you have to be very, 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 very careful on who your outlet is, on who you trust. And that's why most times people in their 30s have smaller
So
circles.
yeah, that's
Quality, quality over
over
quantity.
quantity.
It's it.
You know. So for me, but having that in mind, I've come to learn that there are so many other ways you can have outlets. Sports, watching a movie, anything that just gets your mind off that pressure.
Exercising.
Exercising,
Yeah, go
or
lift
having
some weights.
exactly, or having
or
conversations with
run.
people, exactly, or just gist, anything, that is just not about whatever it is that's. So that was the perspective I was coming from when I said it can be bad when you overshare. But to your question, Kesh, around what are the balance between traditional
Modern
modern masculinity and how
masculinity.
I would relate to it. I would say, first of all, growing up, I did not, let's take for instance flowers. I did not see the relevance of buying a woman the flower. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but what it is, right? I would feel like this flower is going to sit down here and die. Why am I spending X amount of money to buy it?
But
Why
buy
don't I
this
give you this? Why don't I give you this money?
to go and do so.
Mr.
Even if
Roy,
if
don't go there.
No,
I think
no,
on the
like that was
initial, that
your
was your
is
for now.
yeah, like I mean, like way, 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 way back previously. I didn't think about. I never saw my father buy my mother flowers. I mean, it's what it is, right? Everybody grew up differently. I'm talking about my own experience.
me
I
too,
grew up.
same thing.
Yeah,
I didn't see anybody
exactly.
buying flower for anybody.
Yes. In fact, I grew up in a household where my mom was working, and one day she went out and got stuff for herself, and she came back home like, oh, my husband or whatever, I got these nice laces. I think they'll look really good on me. That kind of normal gist. And my dad goes, this woman, who told you? Why are you buying clothes for? Who told you I cannot afford to buy clothes for you? Why are you buying clothes for yourself? And it was some sort of, it wasn't serious, but then it was like a joke, serious joke. I'm more like, oh, okay, oh, please, I need X amount of. I say, yeah, Roy, go up to the bring money and give my wife. So like I didn't see,
It wasn't necessarily flowers. I get you. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't necessarily flowers exactly, yeah, but I didn't see like flowers in quotes as something that was okay. But now I have a girlfriend. Do I buy flowers for my girlfriend? Of course, I buy flowers for my girlfriend.
Okay,
I
you want
mean,
to see? You want to see fight?
yes, and it took conversations, right? Because sometimes that didn't come to me as a default. It took
Yeah.
You have to
it took
learn it.
exactly, going back to what I said. You have to understand your environment and understand, of course, the person that you're dealing with when it comes to a relationship. So I think she values that absolutely. So every now and again, send flowers to her, buy flowers to her because it puts a smile on her face, and that's what I want.
Real men send flowers.
Really? No, really. He has
Yeah.
said. You
So
see,
I mean,
the
it
the
depends on
moment.
the girl wants it, sha. But
No,
you're
see,
yeah,
going.
the moment. You see, on the issue of. I mean, thanks for being specific as well, because not a lot of time people give instances, right? And
Yeah,
on the issue of like flowers, at first I used to have that mentality as well, and I would appreciate if a lot of ladies now see that every man or all men are actually similar in terms of like the thought process when they at first hear the issue. I mean, at the flower thing, and they're like, we see it weird, but at this stage of my life, if it's the small price I have to pay to just see somebody happy or for the from the hope to be cool, I don't mind buying flowers. I'll buy flowers. I see it as a tax. I'm taxed for living at peace in my house. See voila, you
right.
get flowers.
Yeah.
So I think it shows just the maturity or as well for me and a lot of men that actually had to, yield to that as well. Because at the end of the day, you don't want an issue whereby someone they don't feel appreciated and stuff. So if it's flower, I'll get the flower. And the good thing about it, I mean, Trader Joe sells the most affordable flowers. I'm putting their name out there. It's not
thanks
like
for
they're
the
sponsoring this video.
That's a good one, and I didn't know about that before now. So
Oh,
you know,
I have to put
men
everybody
sharing
on game.
tips.
You see, men
I,
sharing
I,
tips.
I have
Go
to write that
if you're
down.
looking for the most
Trader
affordable
Joe's near
Trader
me.
Joe's, they sell the most affordable. You won't even yeah, trust me, and they are fresh. They smell nice.
Fantastic,
Okay.
So go there,
perfect.
get flowers.
Yeah,
And yeah,
Flowers too. I've only received flower once in my life.
I've
I
never received
I
flower in
mean
my
I've
life.
received flowers. I
I've
mean,
never. If you mean actual real life flowers or just normal our school
yeah,
flowers,
actual flowers.
I've never. Nobody has.
Oh,
If I don't think anybody has.
Roy, the real
I
question
don't think
is,
so.
would you like to receive flower? What do you think it would do for you?
Let's know. Let's know. Let's know. Let's know. Let's know.
Your masculinity is
I mean, I've never until I think 2 years ago when I received and it felt good. But I mean, like at the moment, just like,
What
oh,
made you feel good? I want to understand. Tell me the
just,
truth. What made you
I
feel
mean,
good?
maybe because I've never received flowers. So like, it was a
Okay,
strange
the
mixed
first
feeling
time
of
feeling.
okay, like okay.
You know how to
But
act.
that, I mean, that was it. The flower eventually died, like you said. Like,
Because you didn't have the flower base. You didn't
so,
water it.
I mean, I tried my best, but
Mhm.
after a
So,
week or so. But yeah,
I had
yeah,
it's not
something.
something
so
I crave or something I.
Think about it. Like we need to stop giving flowers water. Who says they? Did they tell us they need water? What about if we give them coffee or something? I mean, replace. No, really, replace in the morning. You know how people actually water their plants now. You know, for all those plants
Hmm,
that and plants more.
you have to do the
They,
research
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
they wake up and then they
You take
water the
coffee.
flower, they water the plants and all that. I'm like, who says okay? The same way we drink coffee in the morning. Why not flowers or plants drinking coffee
I
as well?
know, I
Yeah.
know.
All right, that's
You
some
know,
of
so
Can we
so
switch?
they
Yeah,
say
go on.
yeah, yeah, that's one last thing. They say it's not about the flowers most times, it's more around the gesture.
Gesture
You know.
around the thoughts. It's
Yes,
the
yeah,
thoughts that count.
exactly. That is more around,
Uh,
taking taking your taking your time to go out there.
only
Oh, he thought about me to get me flowers and stuff. So I appreciate that angle. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's like fantastic.
what
I
about the
get that.
calls? What about the tests? Those no thoughtful gestures as well.
Exactly. So that's like regular.
but you have to take
You
it.
have to go outside the
Yeah.
boundaries of the
Maybe because
norm.
one costs money and the other doesn't cost money. Sha. I don't know, man.
I mean, calling and texting cost you something. Technically.
Well, it depends on where you are. So
I mean,
Exactly.
wherever you are, it costs you it costs you
So,
money.
so moral of the story is that first of all, I think it's important to learn the person you're dealing with,
mm-hmm.
Understanding.
understand the person, which now ties to what we were saying earlier around how you have to learn, relearn, and unlearn stuff. So learn the person you're dealing with and learn how to best be there for that person. And I feel like most times when it comes to issues of this masculinity thing and relationships and stuff like that, I feel like we as men should also learn to that we need to receive stuff too. Shouldn't be a one-way street of just giving. We should also understand that it's okay to receive, and that goes two ways, right? You have to be able to accept something that someone is giving you as a man. That is a good gesture, is a kind thing to do, and not just something
We
that
struggle. We
that
struggle with
deserves
that.
something in return. That's one.
Bro, we struggle
And,
with that. We
yeah,
struggle with that,
and,
trust
Yeah.
me.
and
I'll ask
yeah.
you a question honestly afterwards.
Yeah,
Continue.
yeah, and on the flip side also, I feel like the people that we are in a relationship with or the people that are our loved ones should also understand that it's a two-way street, right? Even not you have to understand if flowers work for you, understand what works for the person. Maybe flowers
iPad
don't,
iPad works for
you
me.
know. Maybe a Ferrari works, that kind of thing.
It works.
Well, yeah, that's
But
like
yeah, like it's a two-way thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we get you. It's a two-way.